Jeff McAlpine, aka Mr. Mac, and this is my second video series I've made on education. The first one was a whiteboard series. I hope you have a chance to check that one out. 3 Higher Whiteboarding is pretty awesome. It worked wonders for our kids at Mojave High School and beyond. So I'm going back to my roots with this series. When I started teaching classroom culture, management and engagement and setting up the right classroom environment was the thing that I spent most of my time obsessing over. I would take all my preps and go into other teachers' classrooms and see what's going on, how can I create an amazing classroom environment. And so it was my obsession for years, was because I was convinced if you create the perfect classroom environment, you're going to get all kids to learn. Well, turns out you do need that. You need that beautiful classroom environment, but you also need some engagement tools as well. And that's where the 3 Higher Whiteboarding series come in, things like cooperative learning. And I'll actually break down some engagement strategies when we get to that in this as well, because your instruction is a big part of your classroom culture. So some quick background on myself. I've been teaching for 17 years now in CCSD. I was a 2004 Teach for America member in the Las Vegas Valley. So we were the first corps to come in. I remember shaking Harry Reid's hand 17 years ago, welcoming us into the Valley, and it's been an amazing opportunity to be a teacher here for a long time. I taught in many different grade levels. I've taught 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade, and I've done a lot of model lessons in K through 5 as well. Because after 10 years in the classroom, I was out as an instructional coach for 6 years, and I was an instructional coach, a PLC coach, a strategist, and then I eventually ended up designing a school from top to bottom, the innovative programs at a school, and I ran it for a year. And then we got this huge, gigantic grant, the biggest grant ever given to a school. And we hired 3 coaches and 6 interventionists, and we ran it for the second year. At that point, I got in a national search. I became a Ryan Fellow, spent a year as an assistant principal at a very successful charter school, learning all about being a transformative leader. And then COVID hit. I had a health crisis of my own. I've been recovering from cancer, and so part of this is also to keep my mind on education, because I don't know about you, but I miss being in a classroom. And so once my health scare happened, I went back into a classroom, and that's where I've been teaching kids again, and I've enjoyed every second of it before I make that leap up to administration. I just got my administrative degree, so coming soon, hopefully, I'll be either running a charter school or assistant principal at a CCSD school, but we'll see. So anyway, enough about me. This is Teacher Personality Behavior Patterns Overview. So I've coached hundreds of teachers, TFA teachers, TNTP teachers, CCSD teachers, all over the place, many different grade levels, K all the way up through 12. I have a lot of experience with coaching. And I always start with personality. And that's really where classroom culture begins, is your own personality. And we're going to talk about personality in terms of things called behavior styles and behavior patterns. Let's take a look at this. So we're going to look at this thing called behavior styles and a growth mindset. So that's our first major tool we're going to take a look at that will help us create that beautiful classroom environment that we're all looking for. Now, when it comes to personality, there are tons and tons and tons of different models, different ways of looking at humans and who we are and the actions we take, the behaviors we make. And there's just tons of different examples here. And you're probably familiar with many. For example, Myers-Briggs is one of the most popular ones, right? INFJ. And so people love to use that one. And the thing about personality models is that many of them are static. They're stuck. They're designed to tell you who you are. And that's a problem. They're not designed to tell you who you could become. And so when I'm picking a model for behavior, I want to pick one that actually will help tell you who you can become as a teacher, not just, well, here's who you are, so you have to fit into this mold in your classroom. Because really when it comes to personality, we're going to learn that you have to transform your personality in order to be good for all kids. Because a lot of our students from poverty, they're years behind, or they have obstacles in their way. And so we can't afford to simply be, well, I'm an introvert, and so I'm going to teach in this introverted manner, right? We have to transform our personalities, and I've got this beautiful way to get us to do that. It's important to realize that any sort of personality program is never going to be perfect, right? Humans are way too complex for us to really get the psychology of our minds and how we work into a system. So even Myers-Briggs, that has so many different categories in it, it just can't capture how complex human beings are. So that's really important. That I'm not saying that this is the perfect model that captures all human behavior and we should just, this is exactly what people are going to be like and what they're going to do. It's not a perfect system. And it doesn't claim to be. It gets close, eerily close sometimes, to predicting human behavior, and that's why I've stuck with this program for so long. And we'll get into exactly how it does that. And the reason why we're starting with this thing called behavior styles is in order to understand why we make decisions, in order to work with other people, in order to work within ourselves, we need to have some sort of lens to view our behaviors through. Because if we have that lens where we can see our behaviors in a certain light, then we can try to change our behaviors. And we can understand more why we do the things we do, why other people do the things they do. And so that's why it's really important. All right, so the system that we're going to use, I'm not taking credit for at all. It's a system out of the Effectiveness Institute, which is based in Seattle, Washington. And they are an incredible company. Their behavior styles inventory is so absolutely amazing and wonderful. It's a beautiful system, so much better than other systems I've looked at in the past. And you look here at their client list, it's crazy. Like they work with the AAA, Cornell University, Hasbro, HP, Microsoft, REI, and you'll notice the University of Washington is on that list. And that's actually where I encountered them for the first time. I became a resident advisor, an RA, and every year the University of Washington paid huge bucks because it's a very expensive program. I mean, they work with the likes of Boeing and Microsoft. And they used to work with Starbucks actually as well when Starbucks first got started. So University of Washington pays huge bucks to train the RAs on this system every year. And so for the 2 years I was a resident advisor, I was trained on this twice. And this program really stuck with me. And I've been using it ever since. I know a lot of people, they learn these behaviors or personality things and they just drop them, but I've honestly been using this since 2002. So it's been a long time that I've used this system. So I'm hoping I can call myself an expert on it. I can definitely not call myself a trainer on it. I don't work for the Effectiveness Institute. I've just used this for so many years to help train teachers. So why is this behavior styles thing from the Effectiveness Institute, why is it so powerful? Why should we use it as our first thing to look at when it comes to classroom culture? Well, first of all, this perfect program has got to be flexible. It's got to allow for change. Right? Something like Myers-Briggs doesn't really allow for change. It says you are an introvert or you're an extrovert, right? You're in these categories. Well, behavior styles doesn't dump you in a category. It says, okay, here are the behaviors you're more likely to be comfortable with, but you can do all four of these different types of behaviors if you rotate throughout your different behavior styles. Okay, now there's some that you tend to be more comfortable with, so you exhibit more often. Some that you're not very comfortable with, so you tend not to use those. Especially when you're very uncomfortable, you tend to go towards your more comfortable behaviors to make you feel safe, right? But this one allows us to grow and change. We can learn to feel more comfortable in the different behaviors, and that's why it's great for learning as a teacher. It's also got to be actionable, right? It can't just say, okay, here's these behaviors. It's got to give us a path. It's got to show us how can we actually grow as a teacher into these different behavior styles, and this program does that. Very importantly, it's got to fit with reality. So, like I said before, it'll never truly fit, right? We're complex beings, but this program eerily predicts human behavior like you wouldn't believe. Like I can look at a behavior style profile from a teacher that hasn't started yet in their first year of teaching, and I can predict exactly what's going to be their downfall when they get in the classroom. What will be their strengths, what will be their curses, and it never fails. It is amazing how much this program actually fits with the reality of teaching. Finally, it's got to be able to apply to the classroom. And this program definitely, I'm going to show you how it can beautifully apply to your classroom and your behaviors. And it will predict some of the things that you need to work on as a teacher. And so it'll also predict your strengths, and that's what's great about it. Okay, so we're starting with a little quiz here. So I'm going to show you 3 screens. And for each screen, you're going to look at the questions, and you're going to pick one. So for example, looking at question 1, do you like harmony? Do you like to be very accurate? Do you have strong opinions, or are you very outgoing? Now, this is a forced choice assessment. And I realize, knowing behavior styles, that 2 of them are going to really appeal to you. Well, you got to pick one. Okay, so if one edges out the other, go ahead. If they're exactly equal, just, flip a coin. Okay, you got to pick one. So you would either pick the S for likes harmony, the A for very accurate, the M for strong opinions, and the P for very outgoing. Okay, and so to do that, what I would do is I would just get a little slip of paper, write S-A-M-P on it, because those are going to be the 4 choices for each one, and we'll go into what those are later. And then just put a tally mark by it. So for question 1, let's say you choose, I would probably choose A, very accurate. I like that one better. S is so close on this one though, but A is kind of more me. And so I would put one little tally mark next to A. Okay, then I would go to question 2, question 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, by the time you're done, you're gonna have 9 tally marks, some of them next to S, some next to A, some next to M, some next to P, or maybe not. Maybe they're all next to S, who knows? Okay, so pick one. I'm gonna go ahead and give you just some silent moment to pause the screen so you can do this on your own. And then we'll go to the next questions. So go ahead. All right, gonna go to the next slide. Okay, here we have questions 10 through 18, same thing. Pick the one that best describes you. Go ahead and pause it now. Okay, you should have 18 tally marks now. Let's go to the last questions. And here we see we have questions 19 through 24. So go ahead and pause the video now and go ahead and make your little tally marks. And when you're done, you should have 24 tally marks, either next to A, M, P, or S, or a combination of. All right, next on your slip of paper, you're gonna count up the tally marks next to A, and you can go ahead and write that as a number, count up the tally marks next to S, the ones next to M, the ones next to P, and write down those numbers. You will need those. And then we're gonna create what's called your personality iceberg. All right, so your iceberg looks kind of like this. So right here I have this interesting graph that has an A section, an M, an S, and a P. So you would take your A, and what I recommend doing is maybe you could kind of copy and paste this, or take a print screen of this and print it out, or you could just roughly sketch it on a piece of paper. That's fine too. But if you had 14 tally marks next to A, that would be crazy, that's a lot. You would circle the 14. Okay, so that's where that dot would be, or you put a dot on 14. And then let's say you had 6 tally marks next to M, well you would put a dot on 6 next to M, and then same thing for P and S. And then connect the dots. Okay, and you end up with what's called your personality iceberg. Now the one on the right is an example, but that's actually my example. You can see I've got a lot in the A, a lot in the S, but a little bit less, very little in the P, and a little bit in the M. All right, and that's going to mean something. We'll talk about what it means. So go ahead and pause the video. You, like I said, print screen this and print it out if you'd like, or you can just roughly sketch it to make your personality iceberg. So the Effectiveness Institute has this nice cartoon that they like to show. And so I'm going to start with that one. It just generally is a funny way to break down the difference between these behavior styles. So an analyzer, you notice they need lots of information, very much into details, very detail-oriented people. The manager, they're very much into efficiency, right, and getting things done and being in control. All right, so that duck's saying, hey, this is the quickest way. You have your stabilizer, they're very much into relationships, right? And they're very much into other people and helping to serve other people. And so, that chicken's like, hey, this is what everyone else wanted, so I'll go with that. And then you have your persuader behavior. Hey, that was an awesome party. And, they're into people as well, but it's more about themselves and that how other people make them feel. Okay, so it's kind of the flip side to the stabilizer would be the persuader. And so then you can look again at my iceberg. So you'll notice I'm making videos like this. I'm very comfortable with my analyzer behavior. I love the facts and the data and to try to dissect things down. But I'm also a pretty warm and fluffy guy, right? I got my stabilizer in there too. Now, something to keep in mind, yeah, I'm very comfortable with analyzer and stabilizer behaviors, but I also have persuader behaviors, right? I'm very uncomfortable with them. So sometimes it's hard to kind of drag those out of me, but they're in me. And I can actually learn to become more comfortable with my persuader behaviors over time. And as a teacher, I have, and I can show you how to do that. And that's kind of what this video series is going to be all about, is if you're low on A, we're going to spend time learning those analyzer behaviors. If you're low on S, we're going to spend time learning the behaviors needed to have those stabilizer behaviors in a classroom. If you're low on M, that's an important one. We're going to spend lots of time on manager behaviors in a classroom. And if you're low on P, hey, I was low on P to start. And I'll talk about how I got eaten alive as a teacher because of it. But wow, I've learned to definitely harness those persuader behaviors. And I'll show you how to do the same thing. But I love this iceberg analogy. At any one point, there's only one side that's our observable behavior. You can't show both at the same time. And everything else is sort of under the water. It's part of their personality. They have it, but they're only showing you certain types of behaviors. And a lot of this is environmental, depending on the circumstances. So if you're very stressed out, you tend to show your most comfortable behaviors. So when I'm stressed out, I become an analyzer. I'm all about facts, data, learn, right? But someone who's a stabilizer, when they're stressed out, they're all about getting other people around them, right? Helping other people and being around them and sort of being a part of a group and fostering those relationships. And so that's what that stabilizer does when they're uncomfortable. But you'll notice we have all four, right? And so what we do is we call it rotating our iceberg when we go from analyzer to stabilizer, right? Okay, so right now I'm analyzing all these details, but hey, here's my kid, I'm gonna give him a hug, right? I'm not gonna look at them and say, well, here's how I will give you a hug, step 1, step 2, step 3. No, I'm going straight from analyzer to stabilizer, right? I'm rotating my iceberg. And as a teacher, our job is gonna be to rotate our iceberg on the fly as fast as possible when it's needed. We can't show all four at once, but we can rotate between those four as needed in a classroom. And my job is to help you get comfortable rotating between your different behaviors. Okay, so these behaviors can change depending on the circumstance, and a classroom is a really stressful place to be. And so in a classroom, especially our first year, we tend to retreat to our comfortable behaviors. And that's actually why it becomes easy to predict, when I've given this behavior style inventory, exactly where the pitfalls for that first year teacher might be. Or even an experienced teacher might still have pitfalls in one area where they need to develop their behaviors. So this isn't just a first year teacher thing, but that's kind of, I've been used to using this with a lot of first year teachers, and it helps out a lot because we can work on getting comfortable with those behaviors they will need in a classroom before they even get into the classroom. Okay, and so we're going to take a look here at these 4 different types of behaviors, and we're going to pretend like we have a Miss A analyzer, a Mr. S stabilizer, a Miss M manager, and a Mr. P persuader. Keeping in mind this, I'm going to present these people as the polar extreme of behaviors. Even though I'm calling Miss A an analyzer, realize Miss A has all 4 of those behaviors inside her and she can rotate, right? But we're going to say Miss A is mostly comfortable with being an analyzer. Same thing, Mr. S is mostly comfortable with being a stabilizer. And so let's see what these teachers have to say. Because when you first start teaching, or you might even notice this now, there's so many different opinions on how a teacher should create a good classroom culture. What it looks like, how to get there, right? Those are totally different opinions from different people. You can go up to a group of people and one person will say, hey, you shouldn't be smiling, right? You gotta be firm, consistent, firm, right? And then you go up to another person and say, God, I love on my kids, man. I love them. My kids love me. We got relationships, right? Don't listen to that person. We smile all the time. And so it gets really, really confusing. Okay, and so this is going to help us sort of sort between those behaviors and why they're there. So let's look at Miss A. So Miss A is more likely to say this. Hey, I got a long list of procedures and tools you should use in your classroom. Like here's 1,001 things to do. This teacher scripts out exactly what kids are going to do, and their lesson plans are like 10 pages long. You look in their classroom, they got 1,000 different things all over the place. Very organized, meticulously organized. Tons of tools and procedures and things in their classroom. So that's Miss A. So if you went up to Miss A, that's what she would say to you. Like, hey, I've got these really cool tools I'm going to give you. Or you go up to teacher and they're Mr. S. Hey, you know what? The key to student behavior is getting to know the kids. Once I have a relationship with my students, I get to know them, everything's going to be great. My kids will love me. I will love them. we have to have that bond and that relationship. Okay, so that's Mr. S. Then we have Miss M. Okay, so Miss M is a force to be reckoned with. She raises her voice, firm directions, they do exactly what she wants them to do. And this is the teacher that will normally say things like, hey, I'm not going to smile till April, right? I'm not going to smile. They're going to do what I asked them to do. They're going to do it now. Okay? And that's where they thrive. And then finally you have Mr. P, and he says this, hey, dude, it's about fun and engagement, man. It's fun stuff. If I smile, I'm going to be positive. I'm going to make my lessons interesting. The kids are going to love me. They're going to laugh. We're going to have a good time, and everything will be fine. So we got these 4 behavior styles. We have these 4 people, and these 4 pieces of advice that seem very contradictory to each other. And that's why it's so difficult to, these classroom culture video series or books or anything you look at, they're all offering you usually that perspective, right? And so we need to offer all perspectives, because here's the problem. You go into Miss A's classroom, right? You go into Miss A's classroom and, well, it's kind of dry. It's stuffy, it's boring. Miss A is very cold, right? It's about structure for Miss A, not about people. Miss A isn't very assertive either, even though she has these tons of different things that kids need to do. Like, here's the 18 different steps coming into my classroom. Yes, I actually have 18 steps. Sorry, I am Miss A. But Miss A can't get the kids to do it because she's not going to confront them when they're not doing it, because that M part is missing, right? So Miss A is going to have all sorts of trouble. And then we have Mr. S. Well, Mr. S I feel for. About 70% of teachers in my, assessing teachers throughout the years tend to have stabilizer as their top 2 behaviors. Because a lot of people get into teaching because they love kids, right? They love on them. And the problem is, Mr. S gets walked all over and manipulated. Kids take over the classroom sometimes. They can be too nice. They can lack a backbone. And the problem with Mr. S is Mr. S takes it personally because they run on emotion. And so a lot of teachers end up leaving the classroom because they take it personally when their kids misbehave. They always give those surveys, why did you leave teaching? And a lot of Mr. S's or Miss S's, it's because, student behavior. They didn't have the other behavior styles that they were comfortable with to help with that. Another reason Mr. S tends to leave is because of the Miss M's of the world. Our Miss M's, our comfortable managers, tend to skip teaching in a classroom after a couple of years and go up to become an administrator, because they thrive on that being in control and having that power. And they're good at it. They're really good at it. But the problem is, Mr. S doesn't see that as a valuable thing. And so they feel like their administrators are hitting them over the head with, you must do this, you must do this, you must do this. And that offends them, right? They don't have an emotional connection with their administrator. And so what happens is Mr. S says, administration is the problem, and that's why I'm leaving teaching. So we really got to care for our stabilizers. They are amazing people, but they need a little bit of help to be successful. Then we have Miss M. Okay, Miss M usually thrives the first couple of weeks of school. Okay, because they're firm. They're very firm and they're consistent. So kids will do what they ask. But the problem is they tend to be labeled the mean teacher after a while, right? Because they don't tend to give up that control. Now, another thing about Miss M is this is the teacher you might see on YouTube for saying something really dumb in a classroom. Because Miss M thrives on efficient, quick decisions. And sometimes when a kid is misbehaving over and over again, they don't think through the thing they're going to say to the kid. So Miss M might be the person that calls a kid dumb or says, "What is wrong with you?" My first year of teaching, I was trying to develop my manager behavior and I was not very good at it. My 8th graders were messing around and I told them to shut the F up. Really bad decision. Horrible decision that has haunted me for years. I was very lucky that nobody told on me. I didn't get in trouble. I went straight to my administrator. It's like, oh my gosh, I just said this. What is going to go? What's going to happen to me? And they said, let's just wait and see. And weirdly, my kids respected me more. Don't ever do that, by the way. It's a horrible idea. I spent weeks just like, why did I say that? And it's because, I wasn't comfortable with my manager behavior. And so I didn't think, and I said something really dumb out loud. So, they tend to make quick decisions and they don't think about the impact of those decisions. And they tend to get called nasty names behind their back. Sometimes they can be hard to work with in a teacher team because they're very much into, let's just get it done and let's go. And that doesn't work for thriving teams. And then finally, Mr. P's got his blind spots as well. Fun lessons, they have their limit. This teacher gets good control when they have their fun lesson and kids are laughing. But the problem is not everything in a classroom can be fun and exciting and entertaining. And so what happens is there's boring parts of the lesson and the kids just kind of ignore that. Sometimes the teacher just skips over that part, the learning part. And what ends up happening over time is students start to misbehave. And the persuader teacher tends to not address that behavior at all. They're the person where you talk to where they're like, we just wing it. No, I don't have any systems in place, right? I don't need rules. My teacher said rules. I hated those rules. I'm just a happy-go-lucky person in my classroom, and kids just do what I want, right? Well, most of the time when someone's saying that, kids don't actually do what they want. Most of the times that I see it. They have a lack of structure, students hide, and they start to walk all over the teacher and all over the class. And so you can only be Mr. P for so long. It takes, you gotta ramp up fun, man. Because today's fun is tomorrow's boring activity, right? And eventually it becomes exhausting. And so that's the downfall of Mr. P, right? So we got these 4 teachers. And so the question is, which teacher should we be, right? Which behavior style is the best for a classroom? And I'm guessing, you're probably leaning towards the one you're either most comfortable with or your second one that you're most comfortable with, right? And the one you're least comfortable with, you're like, I'm not sure about that, okay? Look, I'm an analyzer guy all the way through. I'm so comfortable with that. I think all classrooms should have 1,000 tools in them, right? But that's just my comfortability, right? My least comfortable is the Mr. P. And I used to think, I don't have time to put jokes in and dance around like a crazy fool. Of course, most people that know my teaching know that that's exactly what I do. I got a costume for every day and I do dance around like a crazy fool. And that's because I've been developing my persuader behaviors for a long, long time now. All right, because I know how important they are. But a couple questions that you could kind of pause the video and think about, right? So which teacher should we be? Which do you think are the most important early in the year, middle of the year, late of the year? Another fun thing you can pause the video to ponder is think about teachers you've had in the past, right? Who were the Miss A's in your life? And did you feel that way about them? Who were the Mr. S's or the Miss M's or the Mr. P's in your life? And who are you in a classroom if you've already been there? Which behaviors are you most comfortable with? Which ones are you good at? Which ones are your blind spots? So if you want to pause the video and ponder some of that, feel free. But let me give you the answer. Here's the key. Here is the key. We have to be comfortable with all 4 different behavior styles. We want to be master teachers, right? Some of our kids are 2-3 years behind. Some of them come from environments that I would describe to you that would just make you just cry, right? I mean, some of our kids, they have a rough go of it. And so we can't afford to just be good teachers. We have to be excellent teachers. We have to be like the best teacher they've ever had in their entire life sort of teachers. We got to be life-changing teachers. We can't afford to just be good enough. And so all 4 of these behaviors are required. We have to be comfortable with them. We have to be able to rotate freely in a classroom. And it's really hard to do at first, really hard to do. But I'm going to teach you some of the tricks and techniques to get there, okay? And so I'm going to take Miss A, and I'm going to call Miss A the tools teacher. I'm going to take Mr. S and call him the relationships teacher. And Miss M and call that the assertiveness teacher. And Mr. P and call that the engagement teacher. And we have to be comfortable being Mr. or Miss ASMP. Tools, engagement, assertiveness, and relationships. And that's actually how we're going to look at creating a positive classroom culture. We got to look at all 4 different behavior styles, okay? And the cool thing is that the one that you're most comfortable with, right? It'll be easy for you to adopt those behaviors, but we can always push you, right? Here's your strength. Let's push this to like the extreme. And then the one that you're least comfortable with, we really got to spend a lot of time developing. And so we'll do that. Because, here's the thing. If we feel uncomfortable showing the behaviors, we're going to give up on necessary behaviors. When I started, I was not comfortable with my manager. I wasn't good at it. And so my first couple of months when I was being trained in Watts, California through the TFA Summer Institute, kids were walking around in the classroom back and forth all over the place, and I didn't confront it. I was trying to teach, and there were literally kids out of their seat wandering around the classroom. I didn't confront it. I didn't know how. I didn't feel comfortable with those behaviors. I didn't have them. And sadly, I met, and I say this to everyone, I was asked to leave teaching. The head of Las Vegas Valley came up to me. I remember sitting on a grassy knoll at Long Beach, and he said, "Are you sure you want to be a teacher? I'm a little worried. I don't know if this is for you." And I had to convince him that, yeah, I want to be a teacher, and I learn like crazy. Okay, so just you watch me. And I did. In my first year teaching, I was in everyone else's classroom as much as possible. I don't think I went home, to be honest. I was doing lots of prep work. And when I get obsessed with something, I get obsessed with it. And to the point of being unhealthy my first year. And I was highly successful with classroom culture my first year. It wasn't easy, but I grew quickly. And I hope you can do the same. But if we give up unnecessary teacher behaviors, here's what happens. We overcompensate with our strengths. You know, when kids start to mess around, the Miss M's, they go from being assertive to being mean. The analyzers, they go from, oh, here's all the details and all the stuff we're going to do, to overthinking everything, right? And eventually their brains blow up. They can't handle it anymore. And the stabilizers, right? They end up in the corner crying. Right? I'm not going to lie. When I started teaching, every night I would drive to an undisclosed parking lot on Long Beach University, and I would sit in my car and I would cry. That's how harrowing it was for me to learn to be a teacher. It was difficult for me. And I'm sure your summer institute experience was probably a lot better, but it was a very earth-shattering moment for me where I had to learn quickly and adapt. And I did. And you can too, by the way. And also, if you're missing vital behaviors, students need them. Students need you to be able to be a great engager. They need you to have tools. They need you to be assertive, right? And they need you to form relationships. If you don't have one of those things, you're missing out on what you could really do to help kids. And so if we utilize all 4 of the behaviors, even though we feel uncomfortable using some, and we persist, right? The problem is we have these habits of behavior and we're stuck in them, and it's really hard for us to be able to rotate our icebergs to different behaviors. And so we got to practice it, right? And I'll show you some different ways to practice them. And once you develop these as habits, then you can use them in your classroom freely. We utilize our strengths effectively. Like, I'm really, really good at tools and techniques in a classroom, and I'll show you a lot of them. Like, for example, I've got 36 different classroom jobs, and every kid has a different job, right? And I'm an analyzer. I'm good at that stuff. That's tons of details, and I can get every kid to do those jobs, right? That's my strength. But we have to practice less comfortable behaviors, and so they become habits. So I've practiced persuader behaviors. Like when I'm talking to my students, I try to be as engaging as possible, right? And then I can go really quiet like this because it will lean forward. I want you to hear what I have to say. But here's this really cool thing to learn about. And then there's other things like throwing jokes in, I dress in costumes. I get that music going in a classroom, and I try to design some really fun, cool, engaging activities for kids. So I've worked on these persuader behaviors for a long time and to try to make them as comfortable as possible. In conclusion of this whole kind of beginning to our behavior styles journey, I know many of you have heard of Carol Dweck. Was an amazing person. I've read all of her books, and she was all about growth mindset. So if you ever heard growth mindset, that's from the brain of Carol Dweck. And the thing is, a lot of people misunderstand growth mindset. And Carol Dweck's book, she divided growth mindset into 2 different parts: an intellectual growth mindset and a personality growth mindset. Most people have an intellectual growth mindset, right? Oh, I can learn things, I can read books, I can, but very few people tend to have a personality growth mindset. So they say, hey, I'm an introvert, or hey, I'm an extrovert. They don't say, I'm an introvert learning to be comfortable with my extrovert behaviors, right? So a lot of people are stuck thinking, this is my personality, these are my behaviors, this is who I am, and this is just who I am. I'm sorry, I'm not going to change. Or a lot of people think that they can't change. But very, very powerful people have what's called a personality growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset. Okay, this is who I am now. My behaviors are like this, and now I'm going to develop my different behaviors and become more comfortable with them. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to, whatever your blind spot was, whatever your least comfortable behavior was, we're going to develop that one. Okay? That's really important for us. And so, as we go through this series, I'm not going to leave behavior styles behind. Okay? We're going to stick with it the whole time. We're going to learn about some analyzer behaviors, and those are those tools teachers. We'll dig into what makes manager behavior, assertiveness teachers so powerful in a classroom. We're going to learn to be stabilizers and love on kids. If you're that manager, like Jaime Escalante, that's the picture of that dude. He was very manager-esque in his classroom. You're going to learn this, I'm going to make you do it, right? But then, man, could he love on kids, right? And so working on stabilizer relationship techniques and tools will be great for that too. And then finally, I've got Bill Nye down there. We got to be that engaging teacher too. So we'll work on all 4 of those different behavior styles. All right, next time we'll expand more on this. I hope you got something from this. At least now you have your personality profile. Feel free to send me a message if you'd like me to. I can kind of make you an official portfolio profile that has your iceberg on it and a little breakdown of that. Just send me an email with your behavior styles and the numbers. So just write A12, P6. Give me all 4 of those and I'll send you a profile out. Otherwise, have an excellent day, an excellent time teaching online at school, and I will talk to you next time. Have a great day.